Hi, everyone, and welcome to How Do I Entrepreneur? This is our first network shop this semester, and I am Didan, and I will be your host for today. I am at MUN studying the Master of Education in Curriculum Teaching and Learning Studies, and I'm working on a startup called Expat Bliss, where I teach foreign workers and foreign students how to adapt easily and thrive financially. Now, I am excited today because we have some amazing people to share with you their experiences getting on their startups, and they have some quite interesting technologies that they have developed, and we'll be hearing all about it today. So, thanks to everyone for joining us, and I'm really happy to be your moderator today. Now, today's event is part of the Network Shop series, and it is the first of 6 events this semester. The series is a partnership between 7 universities in Atlantic Canada, and these are St. Mary's University, University of Prince Edward Island, including their Egypt campus, and Memorial University of Newfoundland, and Dalhousie University, University of New Brunswick, Cape Breton University, and of course, Mount St. Vincent University. Now, we have 3 network shops, including this one today, that are designed to inspire and motivate you, to provide you with the resources you'll need to get started, and of course, help you build a network of like minded people across Atlantic Canada. Now, in addition, the series has 3 fireside chats, and they're titled Women Leading Startups. And these chats are open to all the students who want to be a part of a supportive virtual community for entrepreneurial women. Now, our first chat this semester is next Tuesday, that's February 2nd, and it starts at 12 p.m. Atlantic time, 12:30 Newfoundland time. And these chats are brought to you by the Canadian Ecosystem Gathering, and they will feature different female identifying startup founders each month, from around Canada. And I need to encourage you to check out the link in the chat to sign up now. Now it's time to kick off How Do I Entrepreneur? And for today's workshop, we have an inspiring panel of entrepreneur students and recent graduates who will tell us all about their journey, answer your questions. And so if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat and we will field them there. And at this point, I would like to welcome our panelists to the stage. Now, first up is Arad Garagosli, and he's a current master's student at Dalhousie and the CEO of Galaxia Mission Systems. Now, Galaxia builds AI-optimized onboard computers for aerospace systems. Welcome, Arad.
Hi, thanks for having me, Didan.
Awesome. All right, and next we have Stephanie Arnold, who is a PhD student at UPEI, and she is developing a system to use drone and remote sensing technology to increase profitability and climate resilience of potato production. Hi, Stephanie.
Everyone. Hello, thrilled to be here.
Okay, and then we have Nick Warren, a recent MUN graduate and the COO of Inspector. And Inspector offers software that highlights and maps the components of whatever computer chip it is on. And it was recently acquired by Cadence in Silicon Valley.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Awesome, welcome. And finally, I am inviting Stephanie Adey, undergraduate student at MUN and the founder of Glover. Now, Glover is developing an autonomous quality control system for manufacturers and hardware companies that have low production volume, and it's because it's more accurate and uses fewer resources than currently used methods.
So, hi, I'm ready to get chatting.
Yeah. So thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon, and I can't wait to hear from you today. Now I'm going to start with this question. Please let me know about your startup. So tell me about your startup and how you came up with the idea for this particular solution, and tell us what are some of the milestones you've had to date. So, first just introducing your startup and then telling us the journey from idea to where you are today. Arad, would you like to go first?
Sure. So yeah, as you mentioned, I'm representing Galaxia Mission Systems, and basically, so what we do currently, we are focusing on spaceborne intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance systems. And that means basically putting some sort of satellites into space that can achieve data gathering and data analysis in orbit. But the way we started is basically what you kind of described the company. We started as a company that was really focusing on developing AI-optimized onboard computer for satellites. But the reason that we started is, I guess, is very similar to why most startups kind of get kicked up, because you want to kind of look at your industry and see the components of that doesn't really make sense, and you try to find ways to improve that. So in our case, I was particularly very interested and involved with the space sector, and I realized the space sector is very heavily regulated, but you see a lot of new companies, they call them new space companies, that are coming in, doing a lot of innovation, but the industry wasn't keeping up with that. And again, because my background, I'm an electrical engineer, and that the first place we were looking at was again specifically the onboard computers that go on the satellite, and try to make them a bit more accessible. So the startup companies have the ability to expand on products like this, reduce the cost of launch, the cost of operation, so they can drive innovation in that sector. So, and that's where we are right now. Again, kind of driven away from that, but we are still focused on the making space accessible for more startup companies, basically. That's
awesome. And Stephanie Arnold, tell us a little bit about your startup.
Sure. I'm actually I'm still a graduate student. I'm a PhD student at UPEI. And it didn't start off as an entrepreneurial idea. We really wanted to take a look at how we can help growers adapt to climate change. And we were inspired by the potato, probably because we're surrounded by potato farms, but also it's a crop that's actually very sensitive to water. Too much and too little of it will affect yield and quality. And with climate change, water will come either too much at one time or too little for too long a time. And so it's really a conundrum that will be more difficult to solve as time moves on. And we have different approaches to it. Hasn't really been a really good solution yet. And so we're investigating on how well drones and other remote sensing technology can help farmers answer the question of when do we water, how much do we water, and anything to do with irrigation management. And so right now I have an idea of sort of how that might look like with maybe proprietary software, with an algorithm that I will sort of have to prove the concept in field trials. So we're in early stages, and it's something that I probably wouldn't have looked at it from a startup point of view if it weren't from a MyTex program that I might get to later when we talk about some of our other questions. Thanks.
That's awesome. And Nick, please let us know about Inspectar. How did you come up with the idea, and share some of your milestones that you've had to date?
Yeah, definitely. So at the core, Inspectar is a tool for working on electronics. We use augmented reality, and then we overlay all the design information or other auxiliary data pieces, whether it's from simulations or remote collaborators, data sheet sources, and some other smart integrations there. So we take all that information, we build a digital twin, and then we overlay that right on to the circuit board in real time. So everyone that works on electronic boards, we see is using this, everyone from the hobbyists, the DIY kits, the Arduino stuff, right up to some of these top shelf silicon companies that are creating like the next cutting edge technology that you see in the products around us all every day. We came together for our senior design project. We had to do a senior design project, and we also wanted to use it as an opportunity to build a business. We kind of took inventory of where our interests and skill sets were. We brainstormed that this was, in our eyes, an inevitable technology that would definitely exist, and we figured we were a decent enough crew as any to execute upon it. So we started up through all that. We were invited to Y Combinator to interview. We never got into the program, but through those Silicon Valley experiences, we met up with an angel investor that was incredibly involved in the PCB industry space. They seen what we were working on and really loved it. So in January 2020, we raised a pre-seed round from them, and then COVID and everything happened. And we were all just working from home, this, that, the other thing. And then in August, we closed a deal with Cadence Design Systems, and were brought into that family.
Awesome. That's quite a journey. Now, Steph, please let me know because I've been quite intrigued by the different stories. So I definitely want to hear how you came to this idea. I want to know if it's in a similar a journey or timeline as they have. So tell us a little bit about your startup.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of goes back a few years. I was doing some work terms. I'm a 5th-year mechanical engineering student at MUN currently. And as part of my program, I've been doing work terms. And so I did a work term with a local company in St. John's, Kraken Robotics, and was working in their manufacturing facility, designing, building parts and stuff like that. And part of my job was to do some quality control. So incoming manufactured parts, we had a station where we would set up and physically measure all of the incoming parts to make sure they met our specifications before we integrated them to our systems. Now, you can imagine with a bunch of parts coming in, that can be a pretty lengthy process. But I never really clued into the opportunity there until I went to my next work term, which was at Tesla in Nevada, which was in January of 2020. Unfortunately, it was cut short due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that what they were using was completely autonomous, complex robots that were able to identify their in-spec and out-of-spec parts. And so similar to Nick, when I started my senior design project for my engineering program in May, my classmates and I kind of noticed that gap and decided, you know what, maybe this would be a fun thing to try and just play with for 8 months, see where it goes. And as we worked through it, we were working with our supervisor, and he suggested that we look into it as an actual company. And I did an entrepreneurial work term this past fall. I started actually on a completely different idea, and then in November switched to this one. So this business side of things is still really, really new. But I've had some pretty good traction thus far. I have a couple people that seem pretty interested in the idea, as well as in terms of milestones. I participated in the Genesis Evolution program for anyone that's familiar with that. And I was actually the pitch and pick winner from that. So a little bit of traction there, and we'll see where the future goes.
Awesome, awesome. What I find really interesting about all your stories is that it almost came by coincidence or out of necessity that you picked up these ideas. It doesn't sound like you said, I need some extra money for my lifestyle or whatever. So what I would love to ask you at this point is, have you always been entrepreneurial? Like, was this the first entrepreneurial activity that you started out on, or it's something that you're a serial entrepreneur, always finding ways to get some paper? Steph, you look like you were ready to go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can jump in there. I don't think I've always been entrepreneurial. I have always had an interest in working on new things, but that doesn't mean that I inherently wanted to start my own new thing. But through my work terms, like I mentioned, I had a lot of exposure to working at startups. I started working in corporate positions, more corporate companies, I should say, and then went and dove into a startup where there was 6 people. I was literally their 6th employee. So that gave me a taste of what it was like to work in an early stage startup. And I continued that for a while and just figured taking the plunge into entrepreneurship while I was a student was just the next logical step for me. And I wanted to give it a go to see if I really, really liked it. So that's kind of what my work term was this past fall, was just seeing if I liked entrepreneurship before I got into the real world and needed to make real world decisions.
Awesome timing. How about you, Arad? Have you always been this entrepreneurial person?
I like to think so. I always like to venture around and find new things. In fact, when you were talking about like Quince, is interesting because I mean, I'm here and primarily talking about like Galaxia and all that, but because I recently started a new company, Mimomed Technologies, which is we're working on manufacturing medical devices, and I met with an ICU doctor back in April because of COVID. So we started this company, and we're actually meeting with a couple CVs, and there's some interesting stuff coming up. But I guess my first venture, it was 2006 that I started a website with back in the time with my campus, my roommate, and we created a website selling phone credits. And then we got sued by the phone company, so we had to shut it down. But it was very interesting. But I think, I guess a part of the entrepreneurship is just like, as you said, it has very little to do with money. In fact, it's naive to think that you're going to start a company and make money. It's really rarely the case, as you can see at the failure rate of a lot of this startups and how much resources it takes to actually bring a company up and running. I would say from my first venture, as I said, it was campuscredit.tk was the first one. I think I've started about 10 to 12 different companies.
Wow.
I would say 3 of them worked okay. So Mimomed is one. I started another one about 5 years ago, Radix ITC. So with that, we're designing software for construction company. We actually created a good footprint in Canada. We have a couple clients in New Brunswick. So that's going well. And with Radix with Galaxia, again, that was started back in November. We are up to 6 employees right now. We raised more than 100,000. So it's good. But again, my point is a lot of it fails, and it's not really about money at all, and a lot of coincidence involved. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, you are hitting them down like dominoes.
I try.
Yes. How about you, Stephanie? Is this your first entrepreneurial type activity?
No, and I think if it were, I'm not sure that I would have gone this route. When I graduated out of my undergrad and master's, I went into the corporate world in Toronto, and I had been in the corporate world for quite a while until I met my spouse, who dragged me because he's an entrepreneur. I kind of got dragged along with him, and we did a couple of startups together. The first I absolutely hated, and I think it's because it was such a shock to the system, going from the predictability of a corporate structure to the immense stress of managing cash flow and employees, and every dollar that goes out, it's yours. It hurts. And then with our second one, I think maybe I just got used to that stress and just used a different way. And what I liked about it is by then I had my first child, and I found it to give me the flexibility. Even though I was working harder, it gave me the flexibility of my time schedule, and that I dictated how I spent my time. And because of it, I think when there was an opportunity for me to join the MyTax and the Lab to Market program to see if there's an entrepreneurial opportunity and a startup opportunity, I took it, because if it is, then I can see my research once I finish to really be extended and go into something that will continue to be sort of a new chapter in my life, but give me the flexibility that I still enjoy now.
As a mother of 2 young children, I can totally relate to that appeal of time, freedom, and controlling where and when you spend your time. So I totally get it.
Yeah.
Now, Nick, I suspect that you have also been entrepreneurial for some time. Is that the case, or is this like your first time?
Yeah, I've always kind of been entrepreneurial, but I never really put that word to it until coming to MUN, and Dawn was trying to get everyone to come up to one of the conference rooms for free pizza in exchange for a trip to Silicon Valley. And prior to that point, I was really into the movies like Pirates of Silicon Valley. I was like one of the early ones mining Bitcoin when you could still do that on a budget graphics card, just like out of boredom, and also just like interested in things of value related to computers. Granted, I lost all of that because I didn't think it was worth anything back then.
Yeah.
But I was always just kind of working on little ideas like that. And even previously with MC, I did one of those entrepreneur work terms to build Blue Brick Learning. It was this educational router thing, and just a lot of failed ideas along the way. But all those ideas were so critical in learning how to build new things that there was so much value in just taking the plunge each and every time to try and make something real.
Yeah, I love it. Sometimes it's not labeled entrepreneurship, but you're still out there figuring things out and seeing what people want and whether or not you can solve it. Now, I have to acknowledge that all of you are either still in your programs of study or just wrapping up. And there are students who are wondering now, what's the perfect balance between managing your university work and your business? Like have you found a perfect balance? Or if it's a messy balance, how is it that you're working it out? I'll start with Stephanie, because you have been through, I guess, a longer journey with, going to PhD and with a child and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's less of a balance, and I think juggling. And sometimes you're juggling 3 balls, and sometimes you're juggling 8 balls. And you just pray every day that the things that need your attention today aren't going to be too much for one day to do. And so I think it's more keeping track of things that so that you don't drop the balls. But I don't think there's so much a balance as really good at time management and flipping between different tasks.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. How about you, Nick? How do you figure it all out and not, drop the wrong balls?
Yeah, so I definitely found it pretty hard, and frankly, I'm not a really great student. Studying and everything has never come easy to me, so I've needed to invest a lot of times in my studies. I actually fell back a year to complete all of this and just knocked off 1 or 2 courses a semester to finish up to be able to balance both. So I only graduated this past May. Was my convocation, but I think exactly as Stephanie said, it's balancing those balls, or all juggling those balls. And some days you might drop a couple, and you just need to learn how to pick those up and carry on when your midterms are over, this, that, the other thing. And I think as a student, you're able to prioritize a lot of types of work to lay a lot of groundwork for your business. So then when you're out of school, you can kind of prioritize some of those other work streams that were harder to compete just with that student title.
For Steph, is it that you have a system of prioritizing all the things that you are handling at a time, or you just wake up and pray like Stephanie?
I'm a bit of both. I try to plan, but I've also realized that being in this world, there's only so much planning you can do. I'm quite fortunate in the sense that part of my schoolwork this semester is working on my company because of my senior design project. And a big push for me in terms of company things is to get kind of like an MVP going. And so that's kind of what I've been working on school-wise this semester. So I'm very fortunate. There's a bit of an overlap. But I do try to yeah, it's kind of worked out well for me. Now, I will say it still gets a lot because I have 4 or 5 other courses that I need to be worried about as well. So I try to sit down. I do like to try and plan a little. I try not to do it too far in advance because I know that sets myself up for failure. But just like getting up in the morning, seeing what is the most pressing issue that I need to deal with, and just creating a little to-do list and just trying to check as much as I can off that list. And then seeing where I'm at the end of the day and gearing up for the next day to see what's coming at me.
So basically plan and pray.
A bit of both.
Okay, now I'm clearly getting that if you incorporate your business idea into your studies, or at least you take advantage of university programs that allow you to implement your business idea, then helps with the balance. So Arad, how is it that you approach it?
I would say, as Stephanie said it, so I have two kids. I've got two little girls, 5 and 6. So as Stephanie said, it's just, it's a show on day-to-day basis. But I remember I was watching this talk. I think it was I think it might have been the CEO of Airbnb. It really kind of draw the comparison. These acrobats, they spin like 8, 9 plates at a time. So I feel like at times it's very much like that. I'm doing my master's right now, mechanical. I'm working on 3 different companies, and I'm putting significant amount of time at school too on the Dalhousie Space Systems Lab that I'm involved with. And so obviously things at home. One thing that actually really helped me, and but might be a bit of a tidbit if anybody wants to try it, and this is something I talked to a president of a construction company here, and he actually taught me to do this. I actually ended up creating these blocks on my calendar, and I really just like dedicate my work, like not really planning, but if I have like blocked off 6 hours in the morning, for example, for Galaxia, I don't really get into my other email accounts. So I've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 email accounts on the go. Like I don't even check those anymore. And honestly, once you actually start creating these blogs, you're like, the amount of things you're doing on day-to-day basis just exceeds the physical ability. You get into like the 4th dimension, probably. You have to open a portal to like, and it's pretty much everyone, I think for a lot of people, like no matter what you're doing, it's just, but creating those almost blocks really helped me. But yeah, as you said, it's just like, at times it's just, it's a free for all. I get up in the morning, I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna go today.
Well, you know what I really took away? Like, I'm a big fan. I'm pro time blocking. That's how I keep my sanity. But I also am an advocate of dropping balls intentionally, like deciding when things happen that, this is going to have to be ignored or neglected, or it's going to get mediocre attention today. But what I liked about what you shared a while ago, Arad, was almost silencing the things that are not in your block. Because I know that I might have a block, but I'm seeing notifications from things that are not in the block popping up. And it's hard to keep your mind focused if you don't silence that. So something that I think is a key takeaway just from what everyone has said is, make a plan, pray it works, and make sure that you silence all the things that are going to distract you from what is the priority in this moment. So I really, really liked, how each of you contributed something that we can put together to kind of make a system, right?
Yeah.
Now, clearly from listening to you talk about balancing it all, it's obvious that being an entrepreneur isn't all sunshine and rainbows. So at this point, I would invite you, and I'll go back to Arad to, respond here. What are some of the challenging parts of working on a startup, and how do you face this challenge? Like, what keeps you motivated to keep going in spite of these challenges?
I guess, to be honest, like when you look at it as a startup or entrepreneurship in general, it's you really have to like subtract the good things from the challenges, because I would say like 99% of it is a challenge. But we kind of like talked about some of these here, and I think, for example, like balancing your times and stuff. That's, I mean, one component of that, to make sure it doesn't really take over your life, because I mean, there are times, depending on what projects goes on, and you kind of work till like 10, 11 p.m. You get up at like 4, 5 a.m. It's just like, it's a mess. So that's definitely a big challenge, making sure that you delegate your work, you make sure you're on top of it. And the second one, obviously, entrepreneurship is, it's like a magic. You want to make people believe in you. You want people to believe in your product and what you do. And that's a very, very demoralizing job. You're gonna sit in front of people, and as I'm pretty sure most people here have experienced that, 99% of the time, people are just going to look at you, tell you you're crazy, this is not going to work out. And but you know what? That's the experience with a lot of the startups, and in some cases it's a reality. But once you kind of pass that, in my case, to think down the road that my idea could actually become a reality, I can actually put it into work, and I can actually make. When I'm saying make this world a better place, I'm not talking on a very I don't know, theoretical way, but just make the industry or whatever is a smoother place. And that's basically what keeps me motivated, because the first person needs to believe in your ideas yourself. And if you believe in yourself, you want to see yourself succeed. So that's basically what keeps me going, I guess.
I appreciate that. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I'll chime in a little bit. Going back to my first experience, I think what I really hated about the entrepreneur, my first experience was I was not good at operating in the unknown. And I think it's because when you're in a corporate role, everything this is your task, this is your project, these are your resources, these are people you talk to. And I think it's just something that I got better at. I think what's really challenging is when you have a problem and you don't even know where to start. But that's when you start networking, and when you get taught young, it's also about who you know, not just what you know. And I think in entrepreneurship, that I learned was I understood why people kept telling me that. And so having great mentors, great networks of people who you can go to, even just to get a start of how to tackle something, I figure trying to figure out the problem is fun. Not knowing even where to start, that I find really stressful. So just surround yourself with really great people and just keep in touch with really great people that you meet.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I have a question here, and this is one of the questions from the audience, and it's directed to both Stephanies. And some of our attendees would like to know what you have to say to other female students who are here today, and they think that maybe they're not quite ready to create a startup, whether it is because of family commitments, or they think maybe they're too young, or school and balancing it all, and future dreams, stuff like that. What would be your advice to them? Stephanie Adey, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. So I guess the biggest thing to address there is I don't know if anyone ever feels fully ready enough to make that jump. It can definitely be really daunting. And that goes for anyone. Gender doesn't matter. I think specifically for females, I have fallen victim to imposter syndrome quite significantly throughout my 5 years of education and my 6 work terms. And I think that that's something that I've worked on a lot to try and keep in check, to make sure I'm not devaluing myself. Because I will talk with my partner about things, and we'll ask them, like, can I say this about myself? And they'll look at me and say, are you kidding me? Absolutely. Like, if you can't say that, who can? So I think it's a lot of just self-reflection, to, assess what skills you have. Also be okay to acknowledge that, like, you aren't going to be perfect at everything. There are going to be areas for growth, and just be willing to trust yourself and take that dive. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever found the perfect idea right off the bat. All of us on this call have said, we've started with something and have
Yes.
So I think trying to put that pressure on yourself to, like, find a big idea right off the bat is also adding to that. So, try to relieve some of that pressure from yourself, and just, believe in what you are capable of, and everything else should fall into place.
Yeah.
Yeah, just quickly, I will echo that. With any big changes in life, I don't think you ever see them coming. And you deal with it anyway. And so this is sort of the same, although you have some control of when you start, perhaps. But I find in the very first stage, at least in my experience, it's a lot of discovery anyway. And so when you're talking to your potential customers and talking to people in the industry, you will find that you're actually building confidence and you're building a network. And even though I started that process very not intimidated, but cautious, and I'm not sure if I belong, I don't know if my idea is good enough, but the more people I spoke to, the better I knew what my product was, and the better sense I have of the market. And that process actually gave me the confidence to say, hey, I think I can do it. So maybe actually starting will actually give you the confidence you need to go and do it.
I'm going to add
Awesome.
one quick thing. I think the
Mhm.
scariest thing, if it wasn't clear with what I said earlier and kind of what Stephanie just addressed, is, the scariest part is taking that first step.
Mhm.
Once you make that first step, the next few fall into place and you'll kind of figure out your way. You'll figure out what path that means for you.
Awesome. Now, I want to combine two questions here and ask you all how much of a, like, for one, how do you manage financing your startup idea at the very beginning when, Arad mentioned that it doesn't really start about the money, but how do you finance that idea? And then once you figure that part out, how how much value or weight do you place on the finances as you go through pursuing this idea and building it? Do you want to start, Nick?
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest thing that you can do at the very beginning is do things that don't require a lot of financing. I think you can probably get further than you think by building a POC, trying to be as frugal as possible, and especially just do things you can do yourself, things that you don't need to hire a team and to all of a sudden impose a big burn rate on yourself. Like really bootstrap it along as far as possible, because then when it is time to finance, you'll get a lot of better terms for what you've built. So I think that is really important. And then that also means that you know the domain specifically. It's not that you've hired someone to go ahead and do that. Granted, there are probably going to be some hardware things that require a bit of funding, but those things will be small amounts. And there's plenty of angels around that would all love to fund these things. There is validation in the ecosystem here. So I think that will be possible. And the stress about financing is very real. Every time that we are going through rounds or dealing with accountants and lawyers and all that stuff, it's never a fun period in my life. Like, it's so much stress. It's so much just everything. It's all encompassing. That's the worst part, in my opinion. But you get it done. And then you don't need to worry about it for another 6, 8, 9 months. And it's great. So let's suck it up and do it.
Awesome. Does anyone else want to jump on before we have like about 5 minutes to wrap our panel? Anyone else want to share how you kickstarted your idea and how much focus you place on financing that idea?
I can go if so. Yeah, a lot of the things that Nick said was correct. But one thing I wanted to say is, if you have an idea, it's hopefully within the realm of your expertise. One of the first thing you want to do is just roll up your sleeves and you want to jump in there. Like pretty much from my own experience, most of the things I've done from day one, it's been me going and learning that, trying to put some prototype at least together to bring it to a point that you can secure the first stage of it. And the most recent one, the one I worked with Mimomed, that we were working with the medical stuff, I ended up like learning material science. Like I was like reading mechanical and material kind of literature, which is like way out of my comfort zone. But
self-education.
I know, but that's the whole point of it, because unless you want to do that or pay, you have to have money to pay someone like 20,000-30,000 to do it for you. So there is a big component of that. You really need to learn the game. But other than that, there are opportunities that will give you small pockets of money, even within university. I'm not 100% sure with the MUN. I'm sure you guys have better resources on that. But you can probably secure like 1,000, 5,000 to like get some prototypes done. As Nick said, make it bootstrap. But you do need to roll up your sleeves. You do need to like, spend a few nights to just learn things and get dirty. And then you can, again, probably fund small portions of it until get things rolling. But it is a huge stress, finance.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Now, I have 2 more questions to wrap in the last few minutes that we have. And one is quite specific, and then the other, anyone could chime in. So first, someone in the audience is wondering if any one of you currently or previously suffered from attention deficit disorder or something similar, and whether or not you think dealing with this would hinder or help your entrepreneurial pursuits. Yes, go ahead, Arad.
So I'll jump in there. I've never been to a doctor, but I think my middle name is Goldfish. It's horrible. It's like really messing up my life. It's a thing. Like Nick was talking about it too. I really suck at studying. I hate doing it. It took me. It was a really tough journey for me to like finish electrical. Not that it's just like I can't focus. Like I can't read a textbook. So, but when it comes to like entrepreneurship, there's a lot of things you need to do on your own, especially like doing background research, doing applications. You want to do proposals, but even just staying focused on one target is very important. But in my opinion, it could become very handy to kind of look around while you're on entrepreneurship, because I think an aspect of it is you want to be very agile. You want to understand your environment, and you want to know what's happening around you and react to it in a timely manner. And I think that's that's the high risk part of the entrepreneurship. Again, in my opinion, that you kind of want to have that in you to some extent, to just again be a bit more nimble, be able to like react and just be aware of what's going on around you. But it is definitely tough for me.
Okay, but clearly one is able to thrive nonetheless. Okay, now the final question to you all will be, what's the best choice you took that skyrocketed your startup? And I will start with Stephanie Arnold.
It's probably going to be related to the finances. I came across a MyTax program, and so much skyrocketed as it was not an entrepreneurial idea to now I think I've got something. And what the great thing was, it was a paid internship, and it gave us like guidance through the lab to market program. We had mentors, we had people take us through the things we needed to know so that we can do it. And the nice thing is, now that we have done the work and done the foundation, we have a much better start, so that when we go for more funding, we're able to spend it more strategically, and we're more likely to be successful. And so just being able to access help is sort of what has really helped go from zero to something.
Awesome, awesome. How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we did right when we were looking at the initial industry landscape, we seen that Altium and some of these other big industry titans, like Cadence included, they were publishing white papers of saying, we are interested in augmented reality. The future is augmented reality. So we classified them as, hey, they could be a competitor. They're working on things internally. They're a natural competitor for us. What we did, and I think one of the biggest advantages that us as startups have, is we can move so fast. We were able to go to them, say, hey, we're Inspectar, we're doing this very specifically. Here's basically our secret sauce. Like, you could take this and do it yourself. But we'd love to partner with you or work with you in some way. Like, how can we work together? And evidently that transformed into a really great relationship for us when they said, wait, it's better for us to just take you under our wing. So I think that's one of the best decisions that we made that really skyrocketed, was being very transparent, being very confident to operate in the open and not hide away behind needing NDAs and this, that, the other thing before talking about your startup in any way.
Awesome. So your confidence forged that partnership because they knew you were going to get it done anyway. You're not afraid of any competition.
Oh yeah, we probably it would have taken years to execute upon the same way. And we've heard that from a lot of the customers that we talk to. They're like, yeah, we were working on something similar internally, but this just makes more sense to take your thing off the shelf than to build this ourselves.
Awesome. All right, Steph, how about you?
Yeah, mine is I don't want to say it's completely different, but it's on a much smaller scale, just because I am still so new to entrepreneurship, being my own boss, having a company and all those things. So mine's kind of a two-part answer. The first one is honestly just deciding to do an entrepreneurial work term. It's a really simple decision in theory, I guess. But it was a bit more of a risk. I mean, the financial compensation wasn't quite there compared to a lot of other jobs that I could have had. But it was something that I really wanted to try. So it didn't matter. So making that decision was really good for me, just to see if I enjoyed entrepreneurship, and I've realized that I do like it. But then the second decision was actually to completely switch company ideas. So I started that work term and spent 2 months. I talked to 45 different people. I had done a survey that got over 200 responses. I put a lot of work into
Wow.
exploring a potential idea. And it started to go down a path that I really didn't like. It started to turn and evolve into something that I just wasn't passionate about pursuing any further. And I took a solid like 2 to 3 weeks to really assess why I wasn't making progress on that idea. And it all stemmed back to the fact that I just wasn't interested in pursuing it. And while it was scary to say, okay, goodbye to 2 months worth of work, I would not have made the decision to switch. Had I not made the decision to switch, I wouldn't have gotten a little bit of traction in my last month of my work term with that pitch and pick win and, talking to people and just being able to see if there's actual potential there. So if anyone's kind of in the similar situation, don't be scared to switch. My rationale was if I switch and this goes to a dead end, I can always jump back and see if there's something there that I left off from. But I'm so happy that I switched because I'm onto something that I'm much more passionate about.
That's pretty inspiring, actually, because not a lot of people are brave enough to check the potential behind what they're doing and to see if it aligns with their passions and being willing to pivot if it really doesn't add up. So that's really cool. Thanks for sharing that. How about you, Arad?
I guess one of the things that I wanted to say was Stephanie kind of talked about it before. It's you really want to surround yourself with really good people, okay? The people who develop your network, and that really helped me along the way. Pretty much, when I think back about it, like every company that I had that was a success, it was because it happened because of the network of people I had. Again, the last one, like in the case of Galaxia, I'm working very closely with Idea Hub, and specifically Margaret. Like she's been a good friend, a good mentor, a good someone to just go to and talk to. So you really want to kind of, again, make these good connections and find the right people and connect with them. But if I want to step back, I want to, if you're thinking about startups, if you're thinking about ideas, if you think this is something for you, something I would have done going back in school, look for the right partner. Because in my case, and I guess Nick talked about it too, like their idea kind of evolved from their capstone project, and that's a perfect example. It's very lonely if you are by yourself. Don't be by yourself. You need partner. And that's not something you can just go, on, I don't know, Kijiji or wherever, you just find it. It's like, you need to find the right person. You need to find that chemistry, and you need to find that balance. And it's basically just like a relationship, like you need to complete each other. And university is a very good place to find that. So keep your eyes open. If you see someone around in your class you think would be a good match, keep in touch with them, because trust me, once you come out, it becomes very difficult to meet the right people to partner with. And again, I would say, I don't have the stats, but I can put money on that. Statistically speaking, companies with partners, especially strategically placed partners, tend to be more successful. So really keep your eyes on for the right person to partner with.
Yeah, make those connections. Well, thank you very much to Arad, Stephanie, Steph, and Nick. Your answers were not just great, they were inspirational, they were protective in showing us the potential pitfalls, and lots of nuggets were dropped today. It was really great having you with us today, and we had a networking session before the workshop part of our event started, but we have another one planned so that you can do exactly what Arad said, connect with more people. You might meet your potential partner today. But before we get headed to the networking segment, I just want to explain to you how it works and what it is. So once I'm done, you're going to click on the networking tab to the left side of your screen. Make sure your camera is on, your microphone is unmuted, and you will be tossed into a random room with someone else for about 3 minutes, and you get to know each other. After that is over, it will match you with someone else. So this is kind of speed networking. And so it's a fun and low effort way to meet with people who you definitely wouldn't normally get a chance to chat with, especially in this new world we're living in. So don't log off as yet. We're not quite done. So come and say hi. You might get a chance to speak with one of our panelists in a random room. So go ahead and click the networking tab on the left side of your screen, and we'll see you there. Thanks again, everyone.